Good evening, I'm back. I'm your host, Jack Remington, of the Jack Remington Political Analyst channel. Today's video is totally dedicated to the French national election, which concludes Sunday, April 24th. The results won't be made in public until Monday, so I'm filming it today on April 23rd, Saturday. The video comes out Monday. When the video comes out, the results will not have been posted yet, so I will beat the deadline, and we'll give our endorsement on who we want to win this French national election. I can read you excerpts of the New York Times article written by Michael Crowley. I can't believe they didn't put his name on the first page article of this that came out today. I'm shocked at this, but nothing surprised me from the New York Times. Michael Crowley is a diplomatic correspondent in the Washington, D.C. bureau for the New York Times. And he normally comes out with some good stuff. So I'll use my 3 timeouts and I have 2 challenges because of our NFL game. We'll see how it goes. So let's get to it. The title of the article from the New York Times, written by Mr. Crowley, is called, quote, U.S. braces for potential French election shockwave, end of quote. So we start off with watching a Paris bar as Marine Le Pen, the right-wing candidate, she debated President Emmanuel Macron of France on Wednesday. And as far as I know, that was the only debate they had, and it was televised about France. She did not do too well from what my French-American people were telling me. They said she stumbled, but at the last 2 minutes of the debate, she stung Macron pretty good, because Macron's, that's his style. He seems aloof, and he's kind of arrogant and cocky, and he thought, well, I got this in the bag. Well, no, he doesn't, and we'll get to that. Let's get right to the article. U.S. officials are anxiously watching the French presidential election, aware that the outcome of the vote Sunday could scramble President Biden's relations with Europe and reveal dangerous fissures in Western democracy. President Emmanuel Macron of France has been a crucial partner as Mr. Biden has rebuilt relations with Europe, promoted democracy, and forged coalition in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But Mr. Macron is in a tight contest with Marine Le Pen, a far-right challenger. First challenge, Mr. Biden has not promoted democracy and tried to forge a coalition in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Just simply a falsehood. More journalistic malfeasance, okay? Joe Biden sent Kamala Harris to the EU meeting in Poland, and you can see the Polish prime minister, he's rolling his eyes. You think he just can't believe this cackling hyena over in the middle here who got the center stage, and she's totally blew it. Okay, trust me. And then Biden himself, he gets in front of the Swedish king. Sweden still has a monarchy, and he shits his pants in front of him. So don't tell me this crap, Mr. Crowley, that Mr. Biden's he's promoted democracy and forged coalition in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He's only doing that. He's trying to cover his ass because he knows Joe Biden. He may be an Alzheimer's patient poster boy and the cover child for them, and the centerfold as well. If you could stand and ever look at a centerfold for Alzheimer's magazine special, you might be toast 2022 or 23 if they impeach both him and Kamala Harris at the same time, and if somehow by miracle they make Donald Trump Speaker of the House and he becomes president again. But I don't think Donald Trump wants a Speaker of the House. He wants to run for president if he runs. So this is just an outright lie, but it's early in the article, and it's only the second paragraph, so I've already used one challenge, and I was successful with this challenge, so I get another challenge. Back to the article. Ms. Le Pen is a populist agitator who, in the style of former President Donald J. Trump, scorns European Union globalists, criticizes NATO, and views President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia as an ally. Second challenge, flag, penalty, falsehood, journalistic malfeasance, 15-yard penalty. He calls her an agitator, a populist agitator. She's not an agitator. She's a legitimate candidate, okay? And she's not, an agitator is from the fringe extremes. Well, France used to be a conservative country, and they were for most of its history. Before it was changed from Gaul in the year 1010 to France, after the Franks, it was a 3-way fight for that territory. And the Franks won out, and they just called it France. That was the agreement that they had. I forgot the other 2 coalitions with the Prussians and someone else was fighting over that land, but the Franks won out. They had the better warriors. But to call her a populist agitator, I just think is extremely demeaning. That's like Hillary Clinton calling us deplorables. And also, in the style of former President Donald J. Trump, scorns European globalists. Well, yeah, the left and liberals always try to meld this thing. Well, we've been global forever. We got the United Nations, we do this, we travel, we do this, we visit, we foreign exchange student this, and we buy and sell. Yeah, but they've been doing that for 10,000 years. But the globalist sovereignty of running your country, that's where we want to stop it. Okay, we'll trade with you forever. We don't care. But you're not going to have a one world government and some asshole in Brussels or some Marxist in Vienna or some the bearded caliphate guy, the imam And Istanbul, Turkey, going to tell us what to do, what the heck to do. I got to bleep that bad word out. No, we don't want that. We want to run our own country. We have a constitutional republic with a constitution and bill of rights that no other country has. Okay, that's why America is special. But these people with 5 brain cells, they can't figure out how to succeed in the constitutional republic. They can't figure out that you got to work hard. And that way you can create a legacy for your progeny, your children, then your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. They don't think that far. They just, we're going to screw, we're going to breed, we're going to outbreed you, blah, blah, So it's like Ronald Reagan said, rulers versus rulers. Okay, if you don't have this constitutional republic and you don't have the rule of law, that's what you got. You got whichever one can breed the most at a certain time, get the best warriors, that's who's going to win out. Conquest has been going on since the beginning of time. But you would think with civilized society, we would think, well, we don't need any more wars, we don't need any more conflict, but that's not going to work, is it? Because the people, they still are going to hate you. They hate what you have because you worked for it and you want to conserve it. You want to preserve it for your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And even my own family members don't see that. They think I'm a raving lunatic. Maybe I am. But back to the article. Ms. Le Pen's victory could complicate Mr. Biden's effort to isolate Russia and aid Ukraine. But the very real prospect of the nationalist leading France is also a reminder that the recent period of U.S.-European solidarity on political and security issues like Russia and democracy may be fragile. It is. Poland and Hungary, both NATO members, have taken authoritarian turns, and Germany's surprisingly strong response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine is already drawing domestic criticism. Challenge number 3. I won my first 2 challenges, so I get a 3rd challenge per NFL rules. This is my final challenge, win or lose. Poland and Hungary, yes, they're both NATO countries and members. They have taken authoritarian turns because they both closed their borders. So we don't want no more of these freaking Myers coming here and trying to destroy our country. Okay, they woke up. Okay, they suffered under Hitler. Poland, 1938, 1939, Poland was the first country invaded. In 1956, Russia sent the tanks into Hungary and Czechoslovakia in 1968. So these countries are fed up. Okay, we don't want you here. And there's a famous picture I saw. The ladies yelling, "Ivan, go home." They call it GIs for Russia. They call them Ivan. Ivan, go home. Well, the people were upset. The Vietnamese told our GIs, "Hey, GI Joe, go home." The same thing. Okay, they don't want you in their country. Okay, it's called ethno-nationalism. And I'm doing this whole series on ethno-nationalism, and I hope you stay tuned and I hope you still subscribe so you can get this. It's very important information if you want to follow politics and why the world is the way it is and why we're getting more violence and everywhere in all countries because people have had enough. Okay, so I'm out of challenges, but I still got some timeouts I'm going to use, and I'm not even halfway to the article. So let's go back to the article. Quote, "To have a right-wing government come to power in France will be a political earthquake," said Charles A. Kupchan. He's a professor at Georgetown who was the Europe Director of National Security Council during the Obama administration. "It would send a troubling signal about the overall political health of the Western world," end of quote. And that's just like Obama. I'm not even sure if this guy really said it. I wasn't sure if Obama said it, and he drew a name out of a hat to see who's going to name in the article. He also added, quote, "This is a moment of quite remarkable European unity and resolve. But Le Pen's election will certainly raise profound questions about the European project," end of quote. Mr. Macron was unable to command more than a small plurality of support against several opponents in the first round of voting on April 10th. They have rounds of voting. In the first round, the top 2 vote getters move on to the next round, or the presidential round. Ms. Le Pen, who finished second, a close second by less than 1%, it was 0.8%, and his opponent in the runoff election on Sunday. Polls show Mr. Macron with a clear lead, but analysts say a Le Pen victory is completely plausible. An immigration hardliner and longtime leader of France's populist right, Ms. Le Pen has campaigned mainly on domestic issues, including a rising cost of living, but her foreign policy views have unsettled U.S. officials. Last week, she renewed vows to scale back France's leadership role in NATO and pursue a strategic rapprochement with Russia after the war with Ukraine has concluded. Ms. Le Pen also expressed concern that sending arms to Ukraine risks drawing other nations to the war, which makes sense. She has a legitimate complaint. So now there's a photo of Mr. Macron right. He's been a crucial partner as President Biden has rebuilt relations with Europe, or so Mr. Crowley says. In that one only debate on Wednesday, Mr. Macron reminded voters that Ms. Le Pen's party had taken a loan from a Russian bank. Quote, "You depend on Mr. Putin," end quote, he told her. Ms. Le Pen insisted she was an absolutely and totally free woman and said she sought foreign cash after French banks refused to lend to her. She also sought to deflect charges that she was sympathetic to Russia's war aims, declaring her absolute solidarity with the Ukrainian people, as most people are, including most Americans. I feel sorry for the Ukrainian people too, but I have no dog in that fight. Okay, there's atrocities and Nazis on both sides. So, I've only made one video about the Ukraine invasion, or about Russia invading Ukraine. 10 days ago, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they all said we're going to start removing accounts if you putting in misinformation or disinformation about the Russian-Ukraine war. So Ms. Le Pen has also pledged to curtail the influence of the European Union, which Biden administration sees as a vital counterweight to Russia and China. Really? It may be the Biden administration, but it's not Joe Biden. His handlers are almost as bad as he is. They're just not Alzheimer's patients. They're 1/3 of his age, and they were trained in these Marxist college K through 12 schools. They know everything, right? But they're wrong with this here. Biden administration can't see France, the declining country, as a vital counterweight to Russia and China. China is growing in power, and economic and military power, and nuclear power. Russia's maintained 6,000 nuclear warheads. They have more nuclear warheads than the next 9 countries combined. They're using France, a declining country that's little by little getting rid of its nuclear warhead force because it's so costly and dangerous. And what do they need it for? I don't see any war on the fronts, and I don't think they do either, and the people don't want it either. For the Biden administration to see France as a vital counterweight to Russia and China, I think is just a complete falsehood, more journalistic malfeasance. One senior official noted that France has a recent history of right-wing candidates striking fear into the political establishment before falling short. That was the case 5 years ago when Mr. Macron defeated Ms. Le Pen in the runoff. And there's a reason for that. When you keep importing people from these Middle Eastern countries and Asia and China, you got people that have no lineage history or generational history in the country that they've invaded, okay, or they immigrated to, whatever. I call it an invasion because there were millions and millions of them, okay. France only has like 70 million people tops. Population is probably twice the size of California, legal citizens. Land mass, it's probably the size of California and Texas combined. It's close to that. So you got a small country like that, and you bring in all these people. You're replacing. You've displaced the people that have been there for centuries, and they're usually the conservative right-wing people. Well, now you've counterbalanced that. That can't be. That's happening here in America. So that's why France, this election of France, Brexit was very important. And you saw how the people in Brexit voted. They voted, hey, we want to leave the European Union. Well, that was a big upset. They weren't expecting that. They wanted, we can get Germany's money, France's money, Brussels' money, and they won't let them go. They had another election. They won it again. They keep changing the goalposts, and they still keep winning. They're not listening to the people. And that's bad, and that's a precedent that's being set here in this country. These Democrats and Hillary and Joe Biden, Obama, they saw that happen, Brexit, and they're trying to do the same crap here in the United States. Trust me, they are. They say one thing, but they're doing something different. Just watch their actions, and you should already know what they're doing. I don't have to explain anymore. Okay. You want to charge me a timeout? I still got 2 timeouts left. One sign of how much the Biden administration values its partnership with Mr. Macron was a minor sense of crisis after France withdrew as ambassador to Washington in September after the disclosure of a new initiative between the United States and Britain to supply Australia with nuclear submarines. Mr. Macron's government blamed the Biden administration for the loss of a lucrative submarine contract to have with Australia, and was especially angry to learn about the arrangement through a leak to the news media. A leak to the news media. Leak to the news media. Leak to the news media. Where have we seen this before? Many times. Biden officials expressed profuse support for France in a flurry of meetings and phone calls, and Mr. Biden called the episode clumsy. France was an extremely, extremely valued U.S. partner, he said. Really? They're not that valued, are they? If Ms. Le Pen were to win, Mr. Biden's national security team would be forced to reassess that relationship. Gee, you think? What to know about France's presidential election? The far-right veteran, Ms. Le Pen, a nationalist with an anti-immigrant agenda, is making her 3rd attempt to become president of France and is facing Mr. Macron for a 2nd time after losing to him in the 2017 runoff. Though she has sought to sanitize her image, her proposal to ban Muslim women from wearing headscarves is controversial. Well, again, this is what you get when you bring in a big mass of people from somewhere else with their cultures. When in Rome, you're supposed to do what the Romans do. When you're in America, do what the Americans do. When you're in France, do what the French do. And take off the damn headscarves. You're not living in the Middle East, you're living in France. But they don't want to do that. They want to bring their culture and their shit with them. And their criminals and the cutting the female genitals when they're 8 years old. They want to bring all that with them. Well, if you want to live in a country like France, Great Britain, Germany, Japan, or United States, or even Canada, you got to do what we want. You take care of your children. You don't cut your girls' parts off. You don't do shit like that. Okay? But they insist on doing it, and now they outvote them. And Macron crushed Le Pen in that election 5 years ago in 2017. It was a disgrace. I don't cover foreign election voter fraud. I only cover United States voter fraud. What comes next? At 8 p.m. France on April 24th, which is Sunday, the French news media will work with pollsters to publish projected results based on preliminary vote counts, though projections might not become clearer until later if the race is close. And you can read more about it. They have a runoff page there. So I'm going to skip over a couple parts here. Mr. Crowley, I'm surprised. I mean, you let the article just sink off into nothingness with some more propaganda at the end, so I'm not even going to read it to you. So I'm going to touch on one thing here. The Financial Times, Macron, Le Pen, and France's long battle between order and dissent. I'm just going to touch on this briefly. It's a very good article. You can read it for yourself later on. But I want to talk about this Jean-Luc Mélenchon. He came in third. He almost beat out Marine Le Pen for the second spot. He's a 70-year-old socialist. He's the Bernie Sanders of France, but not quite as radical and didn't offer free shit like Bernie Sanders did. That I got to pay for. But he did draw a lot of the younger crowd. But so this is why I think that Le Pen has a chance, because the people that voted for Jean-Luc Mélenchon, they might vote for Marine Le Pen, because even though he's the left party and she's the far right party, they actually have a lot of policies that are very similar, very much like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. I just wanted to point that out, and I'll put the screenshot up here. You can read the article for yourself. I'm trying to cut down on the time on the videos, but I got to say, in the Daily Wire, I'll put a screenshot up and read it for yourself later. 5 years ago in 2 days, by Elliot Hamilton, news and commentary, moron alert. French presidential candidate Emmanuel Macron calls terrorism an imponderable problem. It's just like Barack Obama. He would never use the word terrorist or Islamic terrorist. He wouldn't use those three phrases at all. Okay, but he won in a landslide. Okay, he appeased the Muslim electorate, and it worked out for him. So it's going to be interesting to see if the French nationalists, the people that are in the hills, the people that have no civic interest at all, the people like in our country in what they call the boondocks and the hillbillies and the inner city slickers, high-rise tenements and the ghettos and the barrios that don't give a shit about politics. All their waking moments are spent trying to survive. So they don't give a shit about elections and stuff. They don't have time for that. Well, what these community organizers like your Barack Obama do, they go to the door, they went door to door with their bulletproof vests and their helmets on. Hey, give us your ballot and give me your address so I can mail it in with it. I'm black like you. Let's get rid of Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't like black people. He doesn't like brown people. He doesn't like women. He doesn't like foreigners. Blah, blah, blah. And it worked. It works. These community organizers, they use that tripe, that propaganda, to how white people were evil and were slave owners and all this other stuff, and it works. Well, they do it in France too. Okay, so hopefully it's going to be in reverse in our favor. Okay, France and England were number one, number two world powers between 1600 and 1950, 1980. The United States didn't become the world power until after World War II. France was well regarded. They were well feared, and my favorite historical person of all time, Napoleon Bonaparte, the late great emperor of France. There will never be another leader like him ever again. Never. Okay, he was truly one of a kind to turn a state nation that was in the French Revolution and turned it to the most powerful nation in the world for a good period of 30 years, and had the British quaking in their boots every day. I'm willing to bet money that this is her. If she didn't make it this time, if she's in her 50s, if she doesn't make it this time, I don't think she's got the heart to go anymore, because that's just going to tell you that they've taken over that country, and France is really going to start really going on a downswing. They were for 80 years they were the top iron producer in the world. For 80 years they were the top iron producer in the world. I'll say that again. But around 1990 they started losing their edge, and they're not even on the same chart. And if I have time, I'll put that chart up there. I'm trying to get the permission from the guy so I don't get a takedown strike. So I started the video so long I'll cut some of this out. I'm looking at my timer. I got 38 minutes worth of footage. I really got to cut that down. But we are endorsing Marine Le Pen. We hope that, really got my fingers crossed, hope she wins. And Macron's got to go. Don't forget the yellow vest protest they had a few years ago, too. And Macron was just as bad as Joe Biden was trying to force a jab down people's asses. No, he's got to go. He's a globalist. And the globalists, they listen to that one guy. And we don't know if it's going to be a Chinese guy or Middle Eastern terrorist, or a Palestinian type guy or Saudi Arabian type guy. We don't know who's going to be the one world order guy if they win out. The United States, it's like Ronald Reagan says, we're the last bastion of democracy, of a constitutional republic. If we lose here in one generation, where are we going to go? I hope you find this video well, and all you French Americans that still love your country of France, your love is still well placed. So for your sake, and for France's sake, we hope that Marine Le Pen can somehow salvage that country and get it back to where it used to be. Thank you. Stay tuned for the next video. Thank you.